So here we have one of the largest tokens in the crypto ecosystem, XRP, otherwise known as Ripple. It's an interesting one because it had such a long period of just absolutely doing nothing, and then post-election we see big rally up, retracement, and a big rally up. There's a lot of people that have quite high hopes for this. The people saying it's the future of finance. We can see potentially here a BlackRock ETF coming. So I think it'll be interesting to sort of break this down and see where we can look at potentially this price going. Obviously, you've already had quite a rally up, so it sits in a very, very interesting spot. So I guess first things first, if we look at some levels. So firstly, I will click here and I will press Alt H, and we will put in our all-time high, and down here we will put in our all-time low. So we can see quite a big range there. So in terms of levels to look at then, so we can work our way down here. So we see that's quite an interesting level. So Alt H, make that white. That's one we'll put in just so we've got a couple up there. This I think is quite interesting because this is the impulse. What else do we have? That's quite a strong level there. We've got a level here. Going along, we can see a level there. Another level here. Now we've got three really close to each other, but this is quite an interesting period of price consolidation. So I think we can adjust those around and play with them. So I will type in monthly. And this one I will also type in monthly, come down, click here, monthly, down here, and we have monthly here is also monthly, and below we have a monthly, and then finally down here we have another monthly. Right, so we can see really clustered down here, not much up here. We've got this massive gap here. So let's go down to the weekly. So if we go back off, so I think looking at this in terms of breaking down various bits of price action, I think we can see we've had this impulse. This has acted as both support and resistance in this range. We dropped down through all three of these levels. Period of accumulation ranging between the levels, impulse, rejection, and we see it's just been held here. I think in all honesty, this bit of price action down here is probably largely irrelevant, unless we have a massively serious retracement in a bear market. I think we potentially won't see this type of price action down here again, so probably not one to focus on. What I will do, however, is we can see that there's quite an interesting area of volume there from that previous bull market, so I will make that orange. So this I'll mark in as just quite an interesting point of reference as to sort of where we range to in 2022. Right, so zooming in on the weekly, so we can see we've got these two monthly lines that are quite close. Now I think this one we can potentially move down to here. This one I think is interesting because it encapsulates quite a lot. So if I move that up there, we see we've got this little range here. I think here's interesting at 190. So we've got a weekly level there that we can use as a point of reference. We have another one there. And if we go up, I think that's an interesting level. So click there, we've got this. And then this zone here, interesting, I think potentially one there. So, we go back out. So we can see a lot of price action here. We're in a little bit of a period up here where it could go anywhere at this point. I mean, if I'm looking at this to trade, any sort of higher time frame moves, you'll probably want to see a retracement back into here. Obviously, we see this impulse, some consolidation, this impulse. From a pattern perspective, it's a little bit similar to what we saw on Bitcoin, where you just see this rally up, consolidation, rally up. And I think the question is sort of how far this goes down. I think certainly first port of call from here on a high time frame is you'd maybe be looking at this weekly retest here at $2.57. But on the whole, on the weekly, there's not a huge amount. So if we go on to the lower time frames, then what can we see? So we can see a full market structure retest, quite a solid rejection off of the all-time high. You can see some of the size of some of the candles. We come back into this area here, and this area is quite interesting because we've had previous volume there. From a daily perspective, is there any daily levels to look out for? Probably there. So put a marker there, and we'll put daily, and then probably here is a level to look at. And this is quite an interesting area. So slightly late to the party on this one, but we can see certainly today it has clipped this daily level and bounced back off. If we look on the 4 hour, yeah, we see this area here, this daily, it's wicked into and bounced off. So this area here, I think, is probably what you'd have marked out as a zone of interest. Actually, before we put the box on, we'll have a look at, so if we go onto the daily, we can see where the volume lies, because this is probably the way that you'd be looking to trade this, given the lack of price action on this. So if I click fixed range volume profile, come out, we stretch this all the way across. So what do we have? Yeah, so we see here is interest, very little volume here, very little volume. We can see it basically bounced off this little box here, so I'd be potentially quite worried that should we lose that, you'd then be looking sort of down here. I think this area here is interesting. So if I draw a box there, we'll draw a box there, we'll draw a box here, and we will draw a box here. This area I think is really interesting. We see a little bit of a volume spike here, so we can go and investigate that on a lower time frame. So if we come down to the 1 hour and see where, so we see this bounce right off the daily level. So if we get our FRVP up again and look at sort of the shorter range volume, so where is the volume here sitting? So we can see here. So the real key is below this daily. So you're potentially looking after the daily at maybe this area here, or this area, which we can see we've already had a reaction on. And there's a little bit of a volume, there's a little bit of a void here. So I think from a perspective of price, and we'll put a purple line here just to indicate the volume, and then there's another one here, and we'll put one up there as well. So zooming in onto the hourly, so you can see area volume here. I think if you were looking for an immediate trade, if you've missed the entrance here, you'd potentially be looking for some sort of retest down here, or alternatively a hold of this, retest of this, and then potentially up to here as a short-term trade, with the aim of potentially following it into this liquidity box. So should it come and retest this volume line here and up to here, you're looking at about a 3% move. If you were looking for a retarget of this daily level up to here, you're looking at 5%, and daily to daily you're looking at about an 8% move, or just shy of 9 to complete the market structure. I think it's interesting. I think this top area we can see has acted as resistance and support previously, so we can see support, 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 comes down, loses support, bounces in this box, resistance, consolidation, resistance, resistance. So I think ultimately this box is the key. If you go into this box, if it manages to break out of this box, you're potentially looking at a rerun of up here. Lose this box and you're potentially looking for a retracement into this little price void here.